Hi, this is Gary J. Tunnicliffe, and I'd like to welcome you to the official commentary for Hellraiser Judgement, in association with my very good friends at Midnight's Edge Productions. And here we go. So, there's the famed lament configuration. We actually used two different boxes for this piece. We used a metal box, and then we used the classic wooden box. And those are in fact the hands of the Auditor, also known as me. With a little bit of computer graphics by my good friend Matthew Gardocky. And then we see the Auditor and Pinhead having a conversation. This was kind of a studio requirement to get a shot of Pinhead very, very early on. There's always a desire by fans to see Pinhead if we're going to have a little bit of lag time before we get to see him. So we thought we'd do this little fun scene of silhouettes. I didn't want to show too much. I wanted you to know who you were looking at just by the little hints. And then give Paul T. Taylor, our new Pinhead, that little bit of glorious eye lighting, known as Harlow Lighting, as a tribute to Jean Harlow. Now, what you're seeing now is the letter being delivered to Watkins. This wasn't the original starting point of the movie. I assume if you're here watching this, then you've seen the film already, and you like it. If you are here watching this commentary and you don't like the movie, then clearly you're a complete sadomasochistic. A sucker for punishment. But if you're listening to this commentary, I assume that you do have some like of the film, and you are here to hear me rabble on about it. So what you're actually seeing is a sequence that was supposed to take place about 20 minutes later in the film. The original starting point of the film was the pan down from the building where we see Crystal Lanning enter the building to get taken by the Preceptor. Then we would have had the credit sequence, and then we would have gone to meeting the cops for the first time. So what you're seeing now, the going to the Ludovico Street, was never meant to be right here, but the studio decided that it would be nice to get straight into the audit and to really freak the audience out very early on. And I originally in the script had written it like that way, and then they wanted it where we started with the crime sequence, and we ended up going back to this, which I always thought was more fun and a bit more European. I wanted very early on to make a film that didn't necessarily lay everything out A, B, C, D, E, F, G. I wanted it to be a bit kind of A, D, E, B, Z, Y, so that the audience would be asking questions. I think we've all seen enough films that just lay everything out on the line, so I wanted to make something a bit more odd and a bit strange. We hadn't seen that in the Hellraiser for a while, and I thought it might be fun to just basically have a situation where, hopefully, for the first 11 minutes, you're watching this movie and looking at each other on the sofa, saying, "What the fuck is going on here? Who are these people, and what are we watching?" And hopefully, you'd think it was cool, because I always thought the audit was very cool. I thought the audit was so cool, in fact, that I said I wanted to play the Auditor. And the reason I did that was technical and also just plain arrogant desire. Technical because it meant that I could do the prosthetics and get them done early, and ego because, well, look at him. I mean, he's just a fun character to play, isn't he? So here we are auditing our first person, Mr. Watkins, played by Jeff Fenter. Yes, the name Watkins is a derivation of Atkins, which is a tribute to the great Peter Atkins, who wrote Hellraiser 1, Hellraiser 2, 3, and 4, and he's a very dear friend of mine. Let's talk a little bit about the idea for the audit. The blood is being drawn from the candidate into the typewriter and being etched onto the pages. And they are not paper, they are supposed to be skin. They are flesh pages that your sins are being etched onto as you're being questioned by the Auditor. And clearly the Auditor knows things about people. He has pre-information. He knows stuff. And that's how he's getting these sins. And the idea was going to be that there would be multiple houses like this all over the world, hundreds of them, thousands of them. And they are spiders' webs and they are catchments to bring in sinners. That was the key idea for the Auditor. And also there is a link here to Scientology. I got the idea when I was watching a documentary on Scientology and saw people being interviewed by these Scientology auditors as people would be connected to e-meters. And I had this bizarre idea that if it wasn't an e-meter, maybe it was a intravenous line drawing blood. And that's how I came with the idea for that. A little bit about the Auditor. It's a character there that I'm wearing a full-face prosthetic with a separate lip, applied by my good friend Mike Meismer, and that was sculpted by myself and Mike Regan, who's worked for me for many, many years. And we'll talk about some of the prosthetic effects later on. Now we're going to meet the Assessor, played by the crazy and well-renowned director John Gulager, who directed the Feast films. And I worked on the first Feast for John when he won Project Greenlight. Some people have complained that John's performance is over the top. I don't think it is. It's as over the top as I wanted it to be. We're in hell after all. I think you can be a little bit big and a little bit verbose. And since John's not wearing a prosthetic makeup, I thought it was fun that he was just a bit of a larger-than-life character. So the idea now is that he will douse the pages in the tears of children, and he's going to consume them, which means he's eating sins. Yes, he is a sin eater. And if you want to look up what a sin eater is, you will see it all over the internet and Google and Wikipedia. Really enjoyed shooting this stuff. Big, fat close-ups. I wanted it to be gluttonous and disgusting, and I think having done horror films over the years and done lots of gratuitous effects, I find there's a certain intimacy to this kind of stuff, this eating and, there's something very disgusting about being that close in someone's mouth and watching them feed. And I wanted the audience to be just confused as the candidate is. He has no idea what's going on. So hopefully the first time that John races to that funnel and vomits into it, which we had great fun shooting, and John was more than happy to drink down the copious amounts of fake bile that I would make for him. I wanted people to be just like going, what on earth is going on here? I didn't want you to have an idea. Anyone who reviews this movie and says, I knew exactly what was going on. If you can honestly tell me that at this point of the movie, you were comfortably going, oh, well, I clearly know what's going to happen next, then I say you're a fucking liar. There goes Mr. Gulager, having done a fantastic job. If you actually look, now you can't really see, but he's actually barefooted, and we painted his toenails black, which is a little bit of a tribute to the Baron Harkonnen in Dune, played by Kenneth Macmillan. I wanted that kind of character like that. And now meeting the jury. What can I say? 3 semi-naked girls. They were originally written as being completely naked. I actually don't really like shooting complete nudity on set. I think it's quite uncomfortable for people. But I wanted this to be a strange contrast of the faces and the bodies. So you have this disgusting face and then these beautiful bodies. Clive Barker always talked about disgusting beauty, and that's what I was hinting at there. And obviously they have now passed judgment, and the auditor's going to hurry back and tell Mr. Watkins what's going to happen next. In this sequence, you'll see me pull the cross from around Jeff's neck. If you look closely, you'll notice I'm wearing a bracelet of sorts, and that is made up of thousands or hundreds of crosses, crucifixes, Star of David's, St. Christopher's, giving the idea that he's taken these over these many, many audits he's done and worn them around his wrist. And now we're going to meet the cleaners. Now, these are naked. Originally, these were written as being, 80, 90-year-old ladies. I wanted skinny, thin, 80, 90-year-olds. But we just couldn't get any 80, 90-year-old women who would agree to be naked in that film. And these ladies did. And there's Diane Goldner, who's actually John Gulager's better half. And we pan off here onto the wall because we didn't want to show what was going to happen. The studio requested that I didn't blow my wad and show everything in this one sequence. And I embraced that. And I like the idea of just pushing in on the auditor's face and those black soulless glasses. And then that little reaction he gives is hopefully a hint of something terrible happening that we're not sure. Some people think he's being eaten at this point, or he's being ripped apart, but he's not. And then we show Pinhead, and Pinhead is supposed to be basking in the sounds of the screams and the cries of the various things going on. And now we meet the Butcher, played by Joel Hatch. This is a very Gilliam-esque character, I think. I always thought that baby mask in Brazil was very creepy. And I had the idea for this kind of parasite that would be within his back. Again, just trying to keep you off balance here and show you something a little bit different. It's hellish, but it's not Cenobites. These characters aren't Cenobites. They're what I call the Stygian Inquisition. And there's my friend Jilly, who's the smallest person we could find to put on this suit and have these blades. What can I say about a gas mask? You know, some people have complained about this and said, oh my god, it's just a fucking gas mask. You know, I just find gas masks to look quite creepy. There's something very insect-like about it. And I liked it. So it was cheap as well. And at this point, I had no money left. I made those blades, you know, and now we're going to peel off the skin. The idea of the skin being peeled off is to give, you know, idea to the skin bodies of Hellraiser, but also when she dumps the skin to the side, what was supposed to happen next, and is in the extended version on the DVD, is that the jury then cut the skin up into page-size sections with the scissors around their necks. You can see they've got scissors around their necks. And then the pages are washed, handed off to the auditor, ready to begin the next audit. Look at that, 330 frames a second. And there are the new pages, and there's the auditor with his music box, which plays for Elise, which is supposed to be a dimensional transition piece of music. That piece of music is used to lure and to absorb people in. And now we're into the credits. Some people have said that these credits are a rip-off of Seven, and to that I say, go fuck yourself. And the reason I can say that is because if you watch the opening credits of Seven, which I did to make sure that I didn't rip them off, there is no typewriters, there is no fire, you know, that is a very specific title sequence. So if you're suggesting, critics out there, that by doing close-ups of a typewriter and fingers and letters, you know, I'm ripping off Seven, those brilliant opening credits of Seven, I suggest you go back and watch them again closely and then realise that they have nothing in common with this. Now, obviously this film does have some similarities to Seven, I'll give you that, in that there is a serial killer, and he's using the Ten Commandments, which could be gleamed as being close to using the Seven Sins, but I see you that those are the only similarities. You know, my serial killer is in fact one of the cops. You know, there's three cops tracking it down. I'm not going to go into the storyline of Seven, but I think there's enough differences of it. But I apologise if people think it's a rip-off. I don't think it is a rip-off. I think it's its own story with its own merits. And so, like I say, in the words of David Fincher, as he always used to say, and I had the joyous pleasure of working with him, go fuck yourselves. And here we get to show some great, close-ups of the wonderful typewriter that me and Mike Regan built, which actually functioned. It was a working, pumping typewriter that was a beautiful prop, and I loved it dearly. Now so what you're seeing now is the tilt down from the building. That was going to be the opening shot of the film. And in fact, it was going to be I was going to have Pinhead and the Auditor with the box, and then I was going to have the box transition into the top of the building and then tilt down. So this would have been the original opening of the film. And here we are, with a beautiful Jaguar that was loaned to us for free that night for our Uber Black. That building, actually, that we panned down from, ironically enough, is the same building that we're in now. This obviously is a real apartment. We'd gone. I drove past this building every day and thought it was the perfect building to shoot. And then we couldn't find an apartment that had that kind of view out of the window. And I said, and my location manager kept showing me all these wonderful built apartments I didn't like and I didn't like. And eventually I just said, have you spoken to anybody in the building that I like? And he went up there and knocked on the doors, basically. And the person who owned this apartment turned out was the guy he went to college with. And they were best friends. And he let us use the apartment for an absolute song. So we went in there for 2 nights. And we shot the hell out of it. Filled it full of, obviously, the candle square is supposed to be a little bit of a Hellraiser-esque thing. Yeah, and we had 2 great fun nights shooting in this location. And I wanted to do something that was a little bit shocking. This always looks weird when she pulls the phone out of her side, and I always thought that was a bit strange, but she actually did keep her phone in there, and that was, apparently girls do that. And that's me. I get to play the Auditor here, only because I've played killers so many times I'm good at punching people and not hitting them in the face, so... you have to have the leaves on the floor when you're going to do car shots. If you're ever going to shoot second unit shots of cars going by, always carry a big bag of leaves with you and throw them on the floor. And now we get to meet our 2 leads, Damien Carney and Randy Wayne. These guys really worked hard, and I put them to the paces, especially Damien, and I really bonded with Damien. He was my buddy, and also helped me out when I was playing the Auditor. He would kind of give me my opinions and stuff. Classic process truck stuff here. This is, basically I think there's a camera mounted onto the front of the car, and we're just driving around shooting these guys, and then we're getting the footage. I have to say I hate shooting car footage. I find it the most boring, dull stuff in the world, because you can't really do anything in terms of angles that's particularly fun. You're either doing a 2-shot or close-ups, and then you're just running the dialogue, and it's pretty boring. So obviously budget dictated that I couldn't have lots of forensic people around and the place full, and that's why you hear them mention the place has been cleared. Clearly they are tracking down this serial killer Preceptor. Clearly they're the guys who are in charge of doing this, and hence the reason everyone's been cleared out from the scene. The scene's been prepped, but they are being sent in because it's their case. I thought it was fun here because we had Grace, who played Crystal Lanning. I put 2 platinum credit cards on her eyes. Bit of a hint at the old coins on the eyes for the ferryman. And then we get to meet Christine Edgerton, played by Alexandra Harris, who was an absolute trooper. And I'll tell you why she was an absolute trooper. Because halfway through shooting this film, Alex sustained a very nasty injury to the face. We had an accident on set, and she took a very severe blow to her cheek, which lacerated her cheek. People talk about digital effects and saying, there's not much digital effects in this film, and there's a shot at the end where you can tell the digital effects are, and they're not very good. Well, I will tell you this: the digital effects in this film are excellent because you don't notice them. For instance, the exterior of the building, and also the fact that most of the film, her eye area is being cleaned up digitally by the great Matthew Gardocky. Obviously, this scene had a lot of impact for people. People have found it pretty disturbing. Let me just talk you through it so that you know nothing bad's happening. Okay, so we're looking at a silicone insert stomach. There's a prosthetic on a girl. That's a silicone insert stomach. And then that is a toy dog from Walmart, which I am pushing up through underneath. And then Alex grabs the furry dog, and then she's taking hold of a real dog into camera. And there's no blood on that dog at all, no fake blood. There is just blood on her hands and some water on the dog. And that was it. Movie magic. No animals or people were harmed, apart from Alex, during the making of this film. Again, another piece of brilliant digital work, because that building actually said Flower Market on the outside of it, and Matthew changed it into Police Department. I wanted a very kind of old-style detective office. Some people have complained and said it looks like a work trailer or something. I wanted it this way. This is the way I liked it. they offered me kind of a big pool detective office, but I wanted this small, intimate area where they've surrounded themselves with all of the case information. And there's a hint there to the fact that Damien is a serial killer when he says, the lights give me a migraine. A lot of serial killers complain about getting migraines or having problems with their head, and it was a hint there that he's suffering from this. There are hints throughout the film that Damien is in fact the serial killer, if you ever watch and listen. He always quotes the biblical phrases perfectly, and there are little nods here and there. That's one of the sequences there. Alex actually has a large cut under her left eye, but you can't tell because it was cleaned up beautifully. This was actually the house of our props person. I wanted a little hint here of Sean's military service. There's his dog tags and medals and a picture from obviously Iraq or somewhere. And clearly he's in the doghouse. This was a much longer sequence originally. I kind of felt bad because Reagan, she'd really worked on this and she got her dialogue down and she's been crying for several hours and kept herself in this mode. And then, of course, I cut the whole thing down. But in the original cut of this film, this sequence is where Sean would go to the sink, would turn on the TV and watch the TV, and then the TV would transition to Watkins watching TV, and then going, that would have been that sequence. So this is where the audit would have taken place originally. But, hey, these things happen when you cut movies and see how they play. Now, Randy's running through the technical details of the crimes. I like having actors eating sequences sometimes. I think they do fun things when they're distracted by food. I also think it's kind of fun that they're discussing such horrible, disgusting stuff, and it shows hopefully that they have a, that they can do this stuff and it doesn't bother them. They've been around this stuff for a while. We find out that she's been in forensics, so they can discuss these terrible crimes and still eat. And like I say, people just tend to do funny things when they're eating sometimes. I like the naturalness of picking food out of their teeth and bits and pieces. This sequence originally was, again, a lot longer and gave a lot more background about the two brothers and how long they've been tracking the case. And also was a lot more confrontational between Edgerton and Sean. But the notes I kept getting back were, let's up the pace and let's move this thing along. So that's what we did, though. So often, it's nice to do character development, and wish I could, wish we could really show some more of that stuff. But like I say, so often, especially in horror films, studios tend to be very kind of like, look, let's get on with it. Let's not mess around. Wanted Alex's character to be a little different. Wanted her to kind of fight back. If you notice that times Sean will ask her questions and she just ignores his question, or she's very kind of like in his face. So that was kind of a fun angle on it. I wanted her to be, have her own character, be strong. Clearly these are two brothers, so I wanted to be able to stand her own ground. These aerial shots were purchased. We used these great stock shots which we found. And now we're in the Lair of the Preceptor. And clearly some terrible, terrible things are happening here. The religious kind of rant that was going on originally was just placed in by my editor Griff, and I just thought it was great. A great little crazed bit of audio. And in fact, I actually said, let's crank that thing up really, really loud. Originally, I had it kind of playing death metal, hard rock music, but when I heard the religious rant, I thought it was perfect. That man's wearing my coat. Yes, that's how it was, I'm afraid, guys. On this movie, it was literally like, oh, we don't have a coat that looks like a police officer's coat, so, what do we have in our cars, Same as if you look at Randy's sunglasses. Those sunglasses he's wearing, you will see that Alex is wearing those later on because, like I say, her eye got lacerated. We had to cover her up, and we went through everyone's sunglasses on set, and those were the only ones that really suit her. So, oddly enough, she's wearing his sunglasses later on. So this is an odd crime scene. I wanted this to be different. I had this idea years ago about these children's hands in a circle. Originally, I was supposed to be on a merry-go-round, but you can't find merry-go-rounds now in America anywhere. I guess they're too dangerous, so I had to place them on this jungle gym. And obviously that's a silicon hand. And then we have the hand of my, not script supervisor, I think it was our makeup girls who had a small enough hand to put a fake eyeball and some teeth inside. And the building we're actually adjacent to is actually a church, this whole building is literally 100 yards away from the studio we were shooting. And I was able to go up high and look down. Another shot of Mr. Taylor looking wonderful. Another shot of our exterior. Again, more police procedural stuff. Unfortunately, with doing any kind of police procedural, you kind of have to go by the formula of what you're doing. I wanted her to be a little shaken by what she'd seen, a bit disturbed. And I wanted Sean to actually be kind of caring and consoling. Now, I am trying to keep the red herring going that he's not the killer. I know some people have said that, I could tell he was going to be the killer earlier on. I think those people are liars. Same as everyone who tells me that they knew that, Bruce Willis was a ghost in Sixth Sense. It's like, or the two killers in Scream. It's like, I think people just like to appear cleverer than they are when they're not. It's like there's nothing wrong in being fooled by a film, guys. And I purposely obviously placed in red herrings where he does things, to make it seem like he's not the killer. In fact, most people believe it's Randy who's the killer. And now we get our link to Carl Watkins, which is going to bring them on a journey to coincide with the house. And then we're going to meet the wonderful Heather Langenkamp, who came in for a cameo. I'm sorry that people think she's the star of the film, and we're disappointed that she's not some kind of major role in the film, but there was no role for Heather in the film. It was a tiny little role, and it's a cameo. I can only say that again. It's a cameo. And that's not how Heather looks. Obviously, Heather looks wonderful, but we made her look grotesque. And I didn't want to put her in a red and green stripy jumper or give her a Nancy name tag because that would be stupid. I wanted her to just be a little character actor who came in. But I'm sorry that Amazon lists actors by their star status, so it appeared that she was a big character in the film. If you listen carefully here, you can hear Alexandra say, "What a fantastic smell you've discovered," which is a line from Star Wars. If you can look around this film, you actually see there's children's shoes and all sorts of creepy paraphernalia in Watkins' room. It was supposed to really hint that he is a sick, disgusting individual, to say the least. Wonderful little set here. And we chose to light it. Samuel Calvin, a brilliant DP, and myself using just flashlights. We had these great high-powered beams, flashlights, and I'm a bit like, look, if you have a set and a great set, don't overlight it, and just let it drop off into blackness. And these flashlights are so powerful, it's brilliant. It's a motif we used many, many times in the film, and I think works. Damien, looking very tired, see? Why is he tired? Because he was up all night killing children, folks. That's why, see? He was, there's a reason why he's sleepy. He's had a busy night. This is actually a re-chopped sequence. Originally, in the original cut, he actually goes back to get his flashlight, which is why there's an error here. If you actually watch carefully, you'll see that he picks up his flashlight off the floor, but this is part of the way the story was changed. So if you're watching carefully, you'll see he's looking, and he finds his flashlight, which he dropped, and there he is. Yeah. And obviously, because the power's now on, the computer fires up, which it hadn't been on because the power was cut off before, and that's what fires up the computer. And obviously, he comes across some disgusting porn, but because he's found he's a cop, he realizes that maybe the last search for a location will be on the computer. And he's right. Because obviously Watkins would have needed to find out where he was going when he's beckoned by the letter. And why does Watkins go? Because they clearly have knowledge about what he's been doing, and he's afraid that they're going to, rat on him or something. His house is a real house in Guthrie, just outside of Oklahoma City, and it's fantastic. And that smoke is actually smoke that I was generating on set with a giant smoke machine. So in between takes, I was running around turning the smoke machine on and off. Again, we hear the fur release music, which is supposed to come from the music box of the Auditor, and that's what hypnotizes Damien and then causes the dimensional shift into the world of the Auditor, the Stygian Inquisition, and in fact the Cenobites. So the idea now is obviously that Sean is a war veteran and would have been trained for interrogation, and so wouldn't be susceptible in the normal way. He'd know where he was and what was going on. He'd probably think this was some kind of interrogation situation. Hence the reason he leaps to different questions than say Watkins or any other victim would. And the Auditor likes that. It's new for him. Regarding the Auditor, I do have to confess, obviously, that in order to get the role, I did have to sleep with the director and provide him with sexual pleasures. But I've been doing that for 45 years, so nothing new there, but yes. So, in fact, I'm still sleeping with the director. This thing was great fun, and me and Damien worked very, very hard on it. And Damien actually he was my eyes as a director, so yeah, just a fun sequence. There's a lot of dialogue cut from this, lines that I really, really miss. Originally he says, "Where are we?" The Auditor's original line was, "Well, we're certainly not in Kansas anymore." But that was cut out because they thought it was too funny. But I like those lines. And I like explaining what the box is and what it is to people. And the fact that there are multiple boxes in the background was a hint of other things. There's even a Leviathan configuration on that back shelf if you look carefully. I wanted the Auditor to have a situation where he respects Sean. He knows things about him, and obviously he knows he's the Preceptor, but this was a very tricky scene to write because I had to give away certain information, but not too much information. I had to leave it vague. When Sean does the confession, and you can hear the typewriter, he's actually confessing to multiple killings, but I wanted, it needed to be vague enough that you didn't know whether he was guilty of killing because of his job or guilty of killing as a Preceptor. It was a fine balance. For this sequence, I actually had the producers, Mike Leahy, call Sean's wife, and we found out various bits of information from his childhood. And then when I actually did the sequence, I would, off the cuff, mention these things from his childhood, and got some fantastic reactions from Damien. At the end of the take, he was like, "What the fuck just happened? Where did you get that information? Were you talking to my father?" And I think you can see those reactions in his face. There are times when he just, you're so close. The one miserable thing for me about shooting this sequence was that I didn't realize was when I made the glasses, I sanded up the outsides of the lenses so that you couldn't see anything. But when I put them on, it turned the inside of the lenses into mirrors. So when I'm doing these sequences, what I'm actually looking at is my own eyes staring back at me, which is very disconcerting, especially when you're trying to do a decent performance, because you're just looking at your own eyes staring at you. Very annoying. One of those things that when I got there, I was like, what the fuck have I done? But if you look at Damien here, look at that. I mean, he's in the moment. He really, really is. And me, I'm just trying to use what I've learned over the years of working with prosthetics, which is the smallest head tilt and movement transmits such an amount of emotion. I started on stage acting and then did film, and it was a joy to play this character. It really, really was. And I knew who he was, and I knew that no one else could do it the way I wanted it, so that's the reason I did it. And I had the full support of my producer, Mike Leahy, in doing that. First take I ever did, and when I walked out to see Pepper, my script supervisor, and Mike, they were like, wow, this is really good. So I knew that if it wasn't good, I could go and edit it or, dub it. But I was able to get away with it. Thank you for people to embracing it. I appreciate it. It's a lot of fun. And yes, he does have a slight German accent. Or I should say, yes, he does have a slight German accent. I don't know why, but I just think that's a more interesting voice than my own. You can quite clearly see the intravenous lines there. I like that there. What a meal he has ahead of him. Because he's got so much to eat. And the little line of Dickens, he's there to stick it to Sean as well because he knows about him. John's wonderful reaction there to the page. It's like a fat kid who's just found there's extra cake in the fridge. John was able to shove that whole... Those are actually latex. Those pages aren't paper. They're made of latex. And I was amazed that John was able to actually get the whole thing in his mouth. And then we're able to put the black goo in there and let him do the next sequence. John's one of those people who just will go for it for you. That's why I wanted him in the role, and I knew he'd be so great, and he was. He was willing to just expose himself physically and to fill his mouth full of black goop and be disgusting and just go for it. And that's what you want, and that's what you really, really want. It's nothing worse than having people do these sequences and then suddenly they're like, oh, I don't feel right about doing this. John would just hung it out there. And there's my cat Thomas, meowing loudly in the back room and obviously agreeing with everything I'm saying. And now we're going to see Helena Grace Donald, who plays Jafil. Which is, I know for a lot of people has been a kind of a sticking point, but with the Hellraiser mythology and with Clive Barker's mythology in the last years with the Scarlet Gospels, there's been a definitive kind of religious overtone to the Hellraiser mythos, and I wanted to bring that in. I'm also a big fan of Prophecy and Constantine and movies like that, and whilst I'm not in any way at all religious, I'm completely atheist, staunch Christopher Hitchens fan, atheist. If you're going to write a story that includes hell, then you have to acknowledge the existence of heaven. And my feeling was, if hell exists, then what's heaven's part in it? Do they just let them go on about their business, or are they using them to their advantage? And I like the idea of bringing angels into it, and Jafil works, for me. I want this kind of meddling of management in this bureaucracy of hell. And now we get to see the cleaning, which I love. And I when I conceived this, I wanted to shoot it. This, for those of you who've read articles about people leaving the set, this was when I had 6 foot, 250-pound grips walking off set saying, dude, this is fucked up. They couldn't stand it. And, we held back on showing what we were going to show for this sequence in particular. And my original cut was a lot longer and had them licking in a lot more places. And didn't hold back at all. And I have the footage, and I will one day cut an audit the way I want it, which will be about 25 minutes long. But yes, you can clearly see where she's going down there, and yes, it got pretty crazy with lots of licking and lots of spitting. And then when it came to the piece here, what really freaked everyone out, we actually used egg whites with sugar because it had kind of a nice viscousness. But when it got mixed up, I made sure there was a little bit of froth, because I found that this, when the liquid goes in, definitely gives people a reaction. But what really does it every time is the white foam that goes in the mouth. That just made people everyone just ran to the hills on that. While I sat watching it giggling like an absolute idiot. But like I say, it would have been even great if they were like 80, 90-year-old ladies doing their thing. And like I say, the original cut was a lot lengthier, so you all got spared. And now we see the Auditor going to see Pinhead, and Pinhead's dog, Chatterer, is going to beckon him off. A lot of people thought from the trailer this was going to be a fight or something, but what I wanted was that once the Auditor crosses over to see his, the person who's in charge, or, or someone he can go to when there's a problem, that he's still afraid, that, he's subservient. If you look, he's on his knees, he's afraid of Chatterer. And Pinhead is bored. Yes, he is bored. Originally, it was supposed to be a shot where that pin that he's playing with is spinning in his head, like he twistles his pins, and he's got his floozies there. You know what I mean? Who are kind of like, what are they up to? But it was meant to be that Pinhead is, original concepts of the Cenobites were they were pacing in these cells, but I couldn't have them pacing. I just think they're waiting for the bell to toll, and they're enjoying the screams of hell. Obviously, there's a notion here towards the eating of the sacrament and that kind of thing. That's where the line is from, the sacrament. And Pinhead can clearly taste it. He knows the sin that's upon this thing. And he knows that Sean will find his way back to them. Again, just trying to kind of like create some kind of like, what's going on here. I have to tell you guys, obviously I'm a fan of the hell stuff, of the Auditor and the Cenobites and Pinhead and all that kind of stuff. And police procedural, if someone came to me and offered me to direct CSI, it wouldn't be the thing I'd want to do. I like making horror films. But those sequences you have to be very careful with, because if you do too much of it, it becomes having these characters, especially Pinhead, on screen for too long talking. He becomes like a Bond villain if he's just kind of like talking and not doing anything. So I chose, and maybe wrongly, and I'm sure there are people who criticize it, I chose to leave the audience wanting, to be, there wasn't enough Pinhead, that you wanted more. That you wanted more Auditor. I'd much rather that people watched the film and wanted more Auditor than were like, oh yeah, I was just tired of that guy yakkering on all the time. And if they are doing something proactive, if they're killing or ripping people apart, then those are effect sequences, and those are hard and expensive because you're into prosthetics and makeups, and it's hard stuff to do. It's a nice blend. Now I'm going to show you how we transition from an actual place to a set. So obviously this is a real building. That's inside the real building, inside the door. And now we're on set, on a stage. So brilliant work by my production designer, Brent Manon. And brilliant set decoration and, real nice aging on the walls and stuff like that. So it's a combination of the exterior set and the exterior real building and the interior set. And again, using these flashlights, just, rather than having to light it, we've got these brilliant high lumen torches that we could use. And I like, I would have the actors point them at each other to illuminate and just see what we got. And again, the joy of shooting on digital now is that your ambient light will light up a whole scene, and it's okay to just see bits and flashes of light. And we did use some 45-degree shutter there, obviously, to give it some animation as well. This is a fun night, very cold, but we did some alternate takes here where Damien just screamed at him in a couple of takes, and just to throw Randy off, and interesting stuff. But obviously there's been a dimensional shift in the building that, it appears like a normal building when it's not being used, and the rest of the time it doesn't. Fire, again, one of those situations where it's like, bring me some candles, and it just adds some interest to it. And again, I think it adds a hellish quality to it. And again, with the lighting, you can use the ambient light of the candles. A little note about the Hellraiser box here. I wanted the box slightly different for this film. I've been making Hellraiser boxes now since '93, and it's always been a brass etching on a mahogany box. This I wanted to do it differently, so it's a copper etching on a beech box. Wanted to look a little bit, I don't know, just a different look to it. Different world, a different box, different time. This is a standalone Hellraiser film, but it also links into the mythology of the first two. This was originally a lot longer sequence. This was supposed to be a kind of weird nightmare that obviously is now crossed into the Hellraiser world, or the world of the Stygian Inquisition and the Cenobites, and there's a breaking down of the dimensional walls, or he's touched into it, almost Jacob's Ladder-esque, I suppose. So we have this strange nightmare sequence. And I know that Chatter's teeth isn't working in this. I apologize, folks. I know it. Trust me, I see it every time, just like you guys. And I'm going to throw Mike Regan, who plays Chatter, out and also made the mask, under the bus here. They should have been working, and when we got there, I was like, why aren't the teeth chattering? And for some reason, the jaw, he's trying to make it work, you can see, but he's just not getting his teeth closed because there was no elastic inside the jaws. And we didn't have time to fix it, and I couldn't reshoot it, so I'm afraid budget fucked me there. And I'm sure poor Mike Regan, listening to this commentary or watching it every time, is equally as pissed off, so the teeth aren't chattering in that particular sequence. What can you do? You would think, honestly, having done God knows how many Hellraiser films, we would have this down by now, but we fucked up. And me, as the makeup effects supervisor, I have to take responsibility for that, so what can I say? I screwed up. Screwed up. Can you believe it? Chatter's teeth weren't chattering in that. But I still think it's a fun sequence. And, the boiling oil in the eyes I just thought was a kind of nice, and obviously kind of links back to an Inquisition mask and that kind of thing. Again, trying to use those subtextual notes of Inquisition and torture. Now you could ask yourself here, is this a dream, or is this really happening? The idea is it's actually a dream, and that his wife is actually asleep, and this is actually still a dream. Originally, they were supposed to be making love, and she was supposed to go down on him, and he was supposed to come, and then he was going to look down, and it was going to be his brother's face that would look up at him and wipe his mouth. But the studio did not like that at all. Basically, I was trying to do stuff that freaks me out, and the idea of being given a blowjob and then discovering it's your own brother giving it to you would be the ultimate freak out, I suppose. But eventually we toned it down into this version. Same as when he goes on the street now and he's drinking. It was a much darker, crazier version. And there are some images online, I believe, of originally he's supposed to be staggering along, and there is this faceless figure behind him walking out there. And then he's supposed to bump into the vagrant, and then what the vagrant actually does is show him behind the dumpster a woman who's having sex with two men in pig masks, and the woman looks up and it's actually his wife. And basically she's giving oral to one guy and the other guy's behind her, penetrating her from behind. And again, one of the notes I got very early on from the studio was, let's lose the pig fucking scene. So there you go. But again, it's supposed to be weird, bizarre imagery, dead goat, Hellraiser box being pulled out of the stomach of it again, kind of. And there's the jury. And this was a very, very cold night. Those poor girls were freezing cold out in the alleyway. But bless them, they were troopers. Speaking of the makeup crew, there's Mike Meismer, who applies the prosthetic makeup on Pinhead and everyone else, and me. And there's Mike Regan and Adrian Lynn, who are the other two makeup effects and makeup crew. So, if you look there, Alexander, she's wearing his sunglasses. And the reason she's wearing those is because she has a big laceration underneath her eye that we decided to cover up with sunglasses in this scene so that Matthew Gardocky wouldn't have to do it digitally. I like the idea of this scene. I think it's a great scene. I think both actors do a great job in it. I kept it very, very tight on the camera. I think my DP, Samuel, was like, you want to go that tight? And I was like, yeah, let's go tighter and tighter and tighter. But it's great what you see in these close-ups. I mean, and it's really a testament to digital high-def cameras that you can see every pore, every skin. I'm sure actors must look at these things and just go, God, my skin, my ears, my hair, But To me, it's nice. I just think it feels real. And I like being that close and that tight. Look at that. I mean, honestly, especially now, is very kind of cognizant of the fact that a lot of films now are watched on laptops, even on phones. So I tend to avoid giant, big, wide shots because I think, like I say, if you're watching a phone, watching on a phone, it just gets lost. So I tend to be aware of that. I knew this wasn't going to be seen in cinemas. Much as I'd love it to be seen in cinemas, I knew this was going to be seen on TVs and phones and tablets. But it's a great scene. The guys both do some great work here. People want to critique the actors for their performances, then you have to critique me, I'm afraid. I was the guy directing it. These are the takes I chose. I liked the performances that everyone did. I thought they all did solid work. So if, don't blame the actors, guys. If you think someone's acting badly, then I'm afraid that's the director's choice. I have to take the blame for that. And I don't think they are. I think they all do a great job. I think they all feel real and believable. This is my little Black Swan homage here. Got the camera on 48 frames, following behind. Look at that. It's Black Swan, Black Swan, Black Swan. And this actually is the back door to the house that they live in. And people are like, how would he know to go there? Because she would have told him on the phone, you fucking idiots. That's why. Just because you didn't hear the conversation. Does everything have to be pointed out to everybody? Sometimes it's a bit annoying when people go, how did he know to go the back door? He's his brother. He knows the house. He knows where the coffee pot is. He knows where the cups are. He's been there a million times. Some people have said that they don't look alike. They're not alike. Me and my brother's 5 years older than me. We look nothing alike. People had no clue, and I based it on that. Don't think brothers always look the same. Me and my brother certainly don't. And in terms of wardrobe, I wanted Damien to wear some skin, some leather. Again, this was a bit of a. I wanted to have some animal skin, so he's wearing this leather jacket. And I wanted Randy to be a bit more clean cut and put together, because they are different brothers. There is an age gap between them, and me and my brother are very definitive personalities and very different styles, and I wanted that with these two. Okay, now the Tale of Two Cities stuff. Look, I'm going to let you just read into it what you will. I mean, if you've read the book, you know what it's about. If you haven't, then you're one of the, you should read it. But obviously the hint line of being, it was the worst of times, it was the best of times. Again, so many lines in Tale of Two Cities that people actually know, but they don't realise where it comes from. Same as lines of Shakespeare. But I felt it lent some weight to the character of the Preceptor and also to the film to have a book like A Tale of Two Cities referenced. And there was a big speech about this at the beginning of the film that originally got cut, talking about how it's, the most popular fictional book on the planet, which it is. The amount of copies of that book sold is astounding. More than Da Vinci Code and Harry Potter or anything. But this is a great chance here to kind of do the red herring thing, that he goes and he's got this bit of information that we're all kind of like hopefully going, aha, oh my God, it's him, he's the killer. Like, we're with David on this thinking we've got some information. And, she's very kind of like, well, why don't you fucking ask him? Why is it a big deal? But I wanted this little nugget of information that the audience had and David had and Edgerton has that we all think is some kind of like, leverage point, or that, how we've got him, we know who he is, it's the reveal. And then of course we quash it later on. Little thing, if you notice as well, like their side of the office is completely kind of messed up and trashed, and hers is pristine. She's clearly very ordered and organised and got herself together. Again, just remember, folks, she's got a big laceration under her left eye, which is being cleaned up digitally. Adrian Lynn, our makeup artist, did wonderful work, and she did what she could to clean up Alexandra's eye. But yeah, you can't see what's going on with that eye. Again, that's a testimony to great digital work. I would say digital work in films is obviously, Marvel films is different. You know what's digital, but good digital work in regular films is like hair plugs on normal people. If you've got hair plugs and it's done well, then no one should ever notice. If it's done badly, then everyone can see, and that's how good CGI in a film should be. When you watch something like The Shape of Water, obviously people can look at certain things and say, oh, well, it's a digital creature. But when you see the set building of that film, what's been done digitally, it's amazing. Like, look at that police department sign. It looks perfect. Try to add little elements of humour, like the cell phone line there. It's like, that's a real thing that we've all done, right? How many times do we leave the house and go, fuck, I've left my cell phone in the house? And even though she's using it as a tactic, I like the fact that David thinks she has left her cell phone behind. Little things that make me laugh. So obviously this is where she thinks she's got this little information nugget on him here. She thinks she can kind of, So there's a little play here. He's very honest about his wife. He doesn't hide anything. I wanted the audience to kind of go, oh, maybe he is a good guy. So when she reveals that line there, and again, he talks about, here, I've got to do my job, I've got to finish my work. He's not talking about being a cop. He's talking now about being the killer. It's his job. It's a tour of duty for him. Got to see it through to the end. Damien plays his mindset so well. It's so weird, he's trying not to be too mwahahaha about being a serial killer or being the Preceptor, but at the same time as being he's on a mission. And there she thinks she's got him. There she thinks she has the reveal, and then he explains, That's quashing the red herring, hopefully. And if you want to see the brilliance of it, now is the sequence where, when we go to the medical examiner's office, this is where Sean's character gets fucked up. We're about to discover that the phone has the information on it that is going to bring him down, and he's going to have to change all of his plans. So right now he's in control. Right now everything's going to plan. Like, he put that spoon in her mouth. He put the cell phone in her throat. So look at his body language. He's quite confident. He's quite calm. He's very happy about everything. Here's the cell phone that went down her throat. Again, if you look at him, he's kind of playing along with the ruse, he's... Now look. Now he's actually confused. It's a very subtle plan. Look at his eyes. You can see that he's actually figuring out that the information's about to come out here. But he's not giving it away too much. It's very subtle. He realizes that, he could be caught out here. He's having to think on his feet now about what he's going to do. Could easily be missed in this performance, but I love watching this scene and just watching him, watching what Damien's doing here. That's why, honestly, whatever I direct in the future, if I can find a role, see how he looks at that, looks at the piece of paper, because he's trying to see if it is the right address. I'd hire Damien Carney in a heartbeat. So obviously he's not calling it in. He's faking his phone call. And that's the address of my old workshop. So this line here about hearing a disturbance, there is a police protocol where you can enter the building without a warrant if you hear signs of destruction of evidence or a struggle or something. So that's why that line's in there. That's very police procedural. And then using the crowbar and the jack, is a homage to Silence of the Lambs. Poor Alex, she could barely lift that thing. So he crowbars up the thing. Someone asked about how it's done, but see, he crowbars up the door, then he puts the jack underneath, and then he jacks it up. Yeah, it's kind of a homage to one of the great serial killer movies of the century. Mr. Hopkins and Mr. Demi. Again, this was just fantastic warehouse location we had, which is actually the same building where the interior sets were built. It's an old flower factory. And I just said, guys, don't move anything, just leave it all in there, and we'll just move around with flashlights. Give you the close proximity of everything. There's a staircase to the right there. That's actually the staircase that you saw Heather Langenkamp go down earlier on. And that is my favourite shot in the film, those silhouettes there. I just think it's fantastic looking. Although Alexandra is not great with a gun, and she just crossed across the back of him with a cocked weapon, which she would never do. But poor Alex, she didn't have a chance to do much gun training. Again, we shot this film for $350,000 in 15 days. It's not a lot of time and not a lot of money. And it's a testament to everyone in the film, from wardrobe, production design, prop people, everybody, that it looks the way it does. And if people want to rag on it for that, then I think you need to give it a wide berth, because it's just, you know, what we filmed the whole film on wouldn't fund a couple of days of inserts on an Avengers movie. So a lot of the crew there in those photos, a lot of the art department crew in those pictures. And why has he got the pictures covered up? Because he covers up as he's. If we'd have gone in here months before, you know, then all those pictures would be covered up, and as he kills each person, the veil comes down. And I wanted this to be a shock when he hits her. You know, it's kind of like a pullback to the Goodfellas, you know, Ray Liotta pistol whipping the guy sequence, you know. I always thought that was very, and there he is, there's that killer revealing himself. I wanted this to be nasty and violent. Some people asked, why would there be a selfie? Why would David have taken a selfie in bed? You know, clearly she's covering her face. I think he's a young kid, and I think he was just in the moment, and that's why he would have taken it, and he would have kept it. You know, the most diligent people take selfies of the stupidest things. I mean, there are hundreds of women who've caught their husbands with silly selfies of girls they've had rendezvous with, or you know, people they've cheated on, and that's what guys do because they're fucking stupid. So you know, yeah, that's why he's got that photo on there. That's why he took it. I'm sure he wasn't going to show it to anybody. I'm sure it was just he took it as a memory for that moment himself. You know, that he kind of like scored with Big Brother's wife, or a moment of relapse on it. But that's why people take photos, right? So always destroy the evidence, people. The music there was obviously used as a distraction by Sean. You know, David would have cleared the room, and that's why I had him do that. And the red light in that room, the red light is supposed to be a kind of a subtextual thing. It's supposed to be a dark room because dark events go on in it, so it's lit like a dark room because it's dark stuff. And that stuff is really in Ecclesiastes, just in case you don't know. You know, I like the Omen. I like the original Omen. You know, the great film by Donner and with Richard, you know, with Gregory Peck. And when I saw that movie when I was a child, the first thing I did was get home, and when I saw it was open a Bible and go to Revelations and read it. And I was stunned and amazed to see that it actually existed. And I wanted that in this movie. I wanted it to have a strong religious authenticity to it, even to the point of Japhil, the angel, that there really is an angel Japhil. She really was the angel that banished them from the Garden of Eden, and also was the watcher of the as Noah's children. So now he's figured out what he's going to do. Obviously, he's got his new plan, and that's going to be to, to kind of like, to see if he can make a deal with Pinhead. Or, whoever has the box. He's never met Pinhead before. But he's going to try and open the box and see if he can, wrangle a deal. This speech was originally a lot longer. It was much more of a big rant where I explained my loathing of the common populace and hatred of social media and stuff like that. But in a very funny conference call with the studio, one of the executives just said, "Yeah, you need to cut all that stuff. That's just the writer just being, ranting and preaching." And I was like, "Yeah, well, no offense taken. I'm the writer." Sometimes the executives just have no, they seem to have no kind of inkling of that you're the person who did the work. They're quite happy to just look you in the eye or talk to you on a phone and just shit all over your work to your face. It's quite strange. Yeah, this was a much lengthier speech originally, where the Preceptor explains what he was doing and why he was doing it. And I wanted him to kind of go off the boil here so that you clearly see he's unhinged. Especially, really triggered on by the moment when he says "Don't touch it," that he screams at her. Like I wanted it to be kind of a shocking moment. See, now he's preaching. And if you want to know this comes from my own personal feelings. My wife always listens to that speech and says, "That's you, isn't it?" So hopefully now the audience, Hellraiser fans, are kind of like going, okay, now I know what he's going to do. Or, you don't know until he pulls the box out. But so, yeah, they do have to be touching the box together. And I do realize that there are people who say, well, in Hellraiser 2, they say it's not hands that call to us, it's desire. But there is still a factor that if you open the box, then they will come. And yes, I know it's solved too quickly and it's a puzzle box, for God's sake. But in the efficiency of movie making, I'm afraid, folks, sometimes, a studio won't let you show 10 minutes of, Rubik's Cube solving. And why aren't there hooks on the end of the chains people have cast? I'll tell you why there aren't hooks on the end of the chains. Because when you have live hooks on the end of chains in sets, people get snagged on them all the time. And they get caught on the live hooks. So you end up having to put cups over them and then pull the cups off every time you shoot. And I didn't have time to do that. Here comes Paul Taylor. Anyway, let's talk about Paul Taylor. Doing a fantastic job. We're not going to go into why Doug Bradley's not in it. Anyone who knows the stories knows why he isn't. But Paul came in and he owns the character now and did a brilliant job. And I changed the makeup enough that I wanted it to be slightly different. You can see there's a grid missing off the side. But I just think Paul was wonderful. And having worked with Doug for so many years, it was kind of strange at times because I would talk to Paul and I would kind of forget he wasn't Doug because there were times he was so familiar to me. It was freakish, really, really was. But I wanted Pinhead to be kind of a lot more kind of flat with this. I wanted to do the bombarding smoke like they did in the first film. I love that effect with the blistering smoke, but it fogs the theatre so quickly. And then you can't see anything, and I couldn't do it. And we didn't have smoke machines and technicians to do it, so I had to forego it, I'm afraid. This really got tricky as a director and an actor, I'm afraid. Playing this role and setting up shots and doing hook effects and tweaking makeups and acting gets very tricky. I had to kind of place myself in a corner at one point because I was just getting so lost. Because I wanted to watch all the sequences but couldn't be standing there, so I kind of separate myself. Some people have noticed here that Pinhead pushes the Auditor out of the way, and they said he wouldn't do that, but I like the fact that he does that. He's like, get out of my way. I thought that was kind of fun. We would have done more coverage here, but the day we actually shot this was one of the first times we shot with Paul, and the first line I had him breathe with smoke to give like a smoky breath. And Paul hadn't smoked for a long time, and when he did it, he got really sick, so we had to take him off set. And he was passed out, poor thing. Almost killed Pinhead on the first day. Again, really wanted to kind of give a hint of the classic Hellraisers here with the chains coming out the walls and the walls parting. Certainly gave Reagan a good blast of blood there. And then another chain. And again, very simple effect. She's lying on a low dolly there and dragging out the wall. I needed to get those two characters out of the way so that I had the whole room to myself. I love that line. And now, of course, Heaven is going to intervene. And that's practical on-set lighting right there, no enhancement. See, and Pinhead knows something's up. Hence the reason he does that little step back. And these few lines are just so much fun. How'd you feel? Eden's doorman. And then what was it? Watching over the Ark Builder's incestuous children. I mean, I think those are fun lines. But clearly she has disdain for this area. You know? She doesn't approve of it at all. She doesn't like this job. And you would ask why she dressed like that. She's dressed like that because she's been around for thousands of years and she wants to look good. She likes looking good. That's the guy she chooses. If you were an angel of beauty, wouldn't you want to look like that? Why not? I just like this power play. I like the fact that there's a lot of stuff going on here. You've got the Auditor as the voice of reason. Pinhead, who is clearly not happy with this annoying intervention. And then this angel who thinks she's above all, you know. And because she's got the power of the Godfather behind her, you know what I mean? She's got the power of the main man backing her up. This little eye roll that she did, I didn't like on the day, but I loved it in the edit when he delivers this line, which is from the Bible. I can't remember much about it, but I love where Helena rolls her eyes back. We get to see those green contact lenses, but I just, you know, I wanted her eyes to be slightly otherworldly. And we purposely made her taller than Pinhead. You know, we gave her heels, and Paul's quite tall anyway. And I actually, I'm not that much shorter than Paul, but as the Auditor, I kind of stoop down a lot. I kind of keep myself low. I like him being a bit of a minion, kind of a butler type figure almost. And there's the big revelation. You haven't been forgiven at all, my friend. I'm afraid you're in big trouble. So you can see I kept myself out of these shots because I'm busy directing, and then I kind of pop in for that one little line. I think that's the first time we've ever seen Cenobite shot. I like that. They're just kind of like, whatever. And obviously Pinhead's quite happy to send him back because he knows that he knows what's going to happen. He understands human behavior. And there she is. Pop. And if you actually listen, he's about to say the line, "It's a far, far better thing I've done than I've ever done," which is the last line of Tale of Two Cities. But obviously we weren't going to have him do the whole line. So I just wanted to empty the clip into him. I just always thought that was great fun. Now we get into it because Pinhead's played his hand and he's got what he wanted. He knew what would happen and he's made sure that, you know, he's about to lay his law down now. He doesn't like being interfered with, you know. He doesn't like his process. I think this is some of Paul's best work. I really, really do. I love what he does here. This is the stuff I also really enjoy writing. I think it's just great fun to write this kind of dialogue and then let an actor like Paul, you know, go for it. And again, testimony there to the makeup work of Mike Meisner and Mike Regan for doing a great job. That's kind of funny. Some people have, you know, a critic complained about doing too many cutaways here when I did this sequence with the pins and saying, "Oh, I love my cutaways." Well, I didn't want to show the pins going in. I wanted the audience to think about it in their head. I think it's fun. You know, you don't need to show everything on camera all the time. It's like, you know, The audience knows what's going on there. Clearly, the auditor knows too. He's looking away. Because then I wanted to do this facial reveal thing where I placed him right in front of her. And then you get the revealing of the crown of thorns. And that's what it is, obviously. It's the crown of thorns. It's a mock crucifixion. Hence the reason why he says, "Are you the way?" Which isn't a tribute to the line from Hellraiser 3. It's a line from, the Bible. And see, she's willing to go through this now because she's already sanctioned the order that he's going to be banished. Pinhead now, he's got the lower hand. She's got the upper hand now because he thinks something else is going to happen to him, but she's already figured out what she's going to do. Hence the reason she laughs. And then the Jesus wept line, I'm sorry, folks, but we just got there on the day and I had other lines and I just thought that was the perfect line. It just worked. And I felt that in the context of, that she knew Jesus and she was there when he died, that she's saying it like, like him, I'm going to weep, Or like, I'm not going to weep like Jesus wept. I won't weep. And here comes the auditor to warn off Pinhead. That blood splash by the way, on the floor, that's digital. Yes, you're in big trouble now, Pinhead. You've made a big, terrible mistake. And the auditor is there to tell you why. But before he has a chance to realise, the bright light of heaven, and we tried to do something similar to the first film here with the clouds moving backwards and all that. Obviously, I would like to have done a great deal more. I wanted him to have his robe stripped from him and his pins pulled out, and ideally this would have been a nighttime shot with the rain and a cop find him in the gutter and rolling him over and the grid still cut into his face. But, I had no money and no time. And those lines on his face were actually put in post. We didn't do that. And then this is a drone shot. I held the drone in front of Paul's face and panned straight up myself. So it ends quite abruptly, but, basically what is there is what was shot. And I couldn't afford to be too indulgent with it. And I think the ending is abrupt, and I think the ending is shocking to some people, and some people don't like it. But honestly, that's what I wanted. I wanted people to be kind of like a bit pissed off about it. Because what else was I going to do? Was I going to have someone stab him with a box or basically say, I'm banishing you back to hell or go to hell? And it's like, no, I'm not. I'm going to do what would the worst thing that could possibly happen, which is to send him, to send him back to Earth. I'm going to basically take the king and turn him into a pauper. So that's what we did. And that's it. Got to give a huge thanks to everyone who worked on this. Everybody worked so hard. We did shoot some extra days on the weekends. I would come in on the weekend with my DP and, Samuel. And then other people would turn up, people, my art department, Sam Howarth and Jennifer and the guys there worked so hard. My makeup crew, obviously, I've worked with for many years, Mike Regan and those guys. And it was myself and Mike and, and Crystal and even Mike's daughter, Brittany, she every helping out. Samuel Calvin, DP, Stacey, was a brilliant camera operator. And she kicked ass and came in for the day she could. Pepper Reed, who was just wonderful as my script supervisor and kind of like kept me on target. Everybody just would come in and was so happy from the beginning of the day to the end of the day. And this was a hard film to make. Location manager Casey and Joel, they found some brilliant places. They really did. Obviously, location manager there, Joel Deco. Joel also plays the butcher, which is kind of funny. See, everyone kind of got involved. Matthew Gardocki was my DIT, ended up doing all the digital effects as well. I mean, people got involved, if we were on set and I thought, people were giving their extra time or they were bringing, like, it was somebody's dog they brought in for the dog sequence and everybody just got on board. Same with locations. People gave up their locations and were happy to get paid. It was a great, and I think a lot of that came from Mike Leahy, my producer, I've known for many, many years. He just has a brilliant kind of like way of getting people to give up stuff. He really is, and bless him for that. And then we're going to roll into this little end sequence. Originally, this whole thing was going to be spoken over by Jaffield, who's been now made a cardinal on Earth. But we cut that out. There's a lot of stuff that was cut out of the film, but most of that's in there is in there. Is good stuff. I have to give a shout out here to Darren Johnson for the music. I love what Darren did. Bob Weinstein very early on said, let's do a kind of electronic score. I would have loved to have Christopher Young's original music. I adore that music, but simply can't afford that. Christopher's a, huge, Spider-Man kind of like guy these days, and we can't get those things. So would be nice, but maybe on the next one, maybe on a bigger budget one, who knows. So this little fun sequence at the end, it's just to show that the Auditor has set up shop somewhere else. It's not a hint at a sequel or a prequel or anything else. It's just a hint that the Auditor is still working and doing his job. And if you're going to stick it to somebody, then why not stick it to Messengers of God? And if you're wondering what this 2 for Tuesday is, it's, because it's 2 for Tuesdays. And that's how we finish. So I hope this has been interesting. I hope you've learned something, and if you've made it to the end, then thank you. And I hope you enjoy the film. Again, it was made for a small amount of money and a small amount of time, but with a lot of love, especially from myself and from the people who supported me. And it is what it is. It's never going to be anything like the first couple of movies. And we were just trying to make a piece of entertainment that was a little bit of fun, that gave something old, with the classic look of the Cenobites, something new with the Stygian Inquisition and the Auditor and the Butcher and the Assessor and that mythology. And then kind of a cool little police procedural. And I know some people have had problems with various parts of it, but I think those of you who've watched it with an open mind, giving it credit for what it has, have enjoyed it for what it is. And for that, I thank you. And who knows, maybe I'll get to do this dance again with a bigger budget. And I hope if I do, that you'll come along for the ride, and maybe I can do some bigger, wilder, creepier stuff. Because trust me, I have bigger, creepier, and much wilder ideas than you saw in this film. Because if you get to meet the rest of the Stygian Inquisition, then you will truly be horrified. This is Gary J. Tunnicliffe saying thank you very much. Especially to Andre and my friends at Midnight's Edge, and I'll see you on the next one.